we reached almost 150, and total almost 250, more than 250 members and interested people had registered for this wonderful training. And I'm sure this tenure, when we had started from 1st of July this year, this New Year committee will promise you to give every month at least minimum two this kind of professional trainings. And I will not take more time. Uh, Make sure that the whatever the after completing the training, the feedback or whatever the survey link we are going to send you, you just participate and you give your feedback. The second thing that nowadays here in Gulf region, we are most of the peoples and members, they are working during night shift, even though they are showing their interest and they are participating this much number. Really appreciate who are timely joined in this one. And regarding Riyaz Sharif, our secretary, Mr. Safdar, he will introduce and he will give brief. But I am sure that because I had attended many trainings conducted by Mr. Riyaz Sharif, he is a certified trainer for breathing apparatus, certified trainer for scaffolding, having more than 25 years experience, and served is as a ASSP co chapter from committee head towards president, and he had mashallah organized a wonderful professional development conference in 2017. Alhamdulillah, we are having a very good personality with us. Let's hear from our secretary. He will introduce today's speakers and we will continue with this. Thank you. Over to you, Safdar.
Thank you, Mr. Jahid. It's my honor to welcome you all for today Zoom training, which is on hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control. Before I introduce this speaker, there are general ground rule we need to follow it. Kindly mute your microphone during training participation. If you have any question and query, you can kindly post in group chat. For logistic issue, I understand that 2 hours continuous sitting will be a challenging to us. So I will request our trainer also, if he feel comfortable, 1-2 minute break will be also given during the training session itself. Now, during part of the training, you would like to have some question. So it is on trainer discretion, what time you will be liking to have the questions in first session, second session, or third session itself. Other thing, like it is a Zoom meeting, sometimes connectivity is the issue. So be patient and listen to us. We will be connecting you soon if the links is being filled. Right, so it's a part now to introduce our dynamic trainer, Mr. Muhammad Riyaz Sharif. He's professional member of American Society of Safety Professional. He's holding bachelor degree in mechanical engineering and diploma in industrial safety. He was part of advisory committee member of SSP chapter, past president of American Society of Safety Engineers, earlier it was the name, during year 2014 and 2015. He was awarded as Safety Professional of the Year by American Society in year 2015. He has 25 years of extensive experience in the field of health, safety, and environment, management in oil and gas industry, and HSE consultancy. He was part of many root cause analysis, accident investigation techniques. He is fully well versed for international HSE regulation and treaties, development of HSE procedure and policy, occupational risk and mitigation, environmental aspect and impact of oil and gas industry. He has developed and implemented HSE management procedure, implementation of process safety management, and certified mentor for new hire engineers, major refinery turnaround, HSE planning, implementation, and monitoring to successful completion. He has presented various technical papers in many HSE and PSM conferences in GCC and Malaysia. He is technical committee member of CCPS and has been technical advisor for various conferences. In addition, he holds various technical certificates like a UOP graduate in continuous catalyst regeneration platforming TM process technology. He is certified lead auditor of IMS, ISO 9001, 14001, and 45001 series. He is certified leader process hazard analyst. He is certified HEJOP expert. He is certified train the trainer in respiratory protection based on OSHA CFR 29 1910.1334 and NFPA 1500 from USA. He is certified train the trainer of scaffolding from a Scaffolding Institute USA in OSHA 29 19.26.450. So join me welcoming our trainer for today, and it will be a very enriching session with your active participation. Over to you, Mr. Riyaz Sharif.
All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, Mr. Safdar. Thank you, Mr. Jahed. Thank you, the ASSP 2021 brand new committee. It's my pleasure to be with all of you. And I see about 83 people are with me. And I wish them all a very good evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So without taking much of your time, I would like to get started with our today's training program. Yes, so if you think that my voice is a little modulating, or if it is having some breakages, please keep me posted. So through my WhatsApp, and then inshallah I will be able to catch you guys and try to rectify or modulate my voice. So today we are talking about HIRA and RC. So this is about hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control. That's me, and Saptar has given a very big introduction of mine, so it's better I just skip my introduction because Saptar couldn't show my picture, so I'm showing my picture. So the purpose of today's training program is very important for us to understand that in the recent years, hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control has become fundamental to the practice of planning, management, and operations of business as a basic risk management tool. So this is a very important aspect here. This training is a very systematic, objective approach to assessing hazards and their associated risks that will provide an objective measure. I'm emphasizing on the word objective measures, objective measures of an identified hazard, as well as provide a methodology to control the risk. So basically, we are going to get our next an hour and 40 minutes through this. And pardon me, all of you, it's about 12:45 here in the night, past midnight. And if I happen to yawn, so please pardon me. So let's move on the learning objective of today's program. We will go through certain definitions. We will see what is HIRA and RC. We will check on risk management, and we will see how we will conduct our risk assessments, and we will go through a bit of risk control. See, I would like to put a point here is each one of this requires a full 2 hours plus training program. I am trying to touch and go on all of these aspects, trying to put it in a good, understandable way so that all of us collectively we understand the HIRA and RC process. Otherwise, each one of this risk management by itself is a 2-hour program, risk assessment by itself, it's a 2-hour program or maybe more. So it's basically, if you ask me to do an HIRA and RC program, it's a full 8-hour course. So, but inshallah, I will try to cover in next 1 hour and 40 minutes that our Safdar has given to me. And then as we all do, our safety professionals, that we start any program with a safety movement. Now, this safety movement, I just wanted to ask a question: how many of us kind of agree safety first or safety is priority? Most of us, right? Well, don't rely on these cute little phrases to make you safe. You got to rely on yourself. Remember, the key to safety is personal responsibility. Each one of us, we display and we do things in the right way. So let's go ahead and have our safety moment. It's a video, and I'd like all of you to join me.
If you truly believe that safety is important in your work, at home, or anywhere else, there is no place for these two phrases, safety first and safety is our #1 priority. To do a job safely, our goal is to complete it without accident or injury. But the slogans safety first and safety is our priority will not help us achieve this goal. The danger in making safety a priority rests within the reality that priorities get reshuffled throughout the day. When we're under pressure to complete a job, we may find that safety first can easily become safety second, safety third, or moved so far down the list that we end up taking ridiculous risks that result in accidents. Your employer is not in business to make you be safe or to keep you safe. There's no doubt that they want you to go home safe and healthy every day, but the company's priorities revolve around different goals, just as your goal is to make money in the form of a paycheck. Slogans like safety first and safety is our priority discourage personal responsibility because safety begins and ends with you. Is it reasonable to think that someone would hire you to do a job and then tell you that nothing is more important to them than your personal safety? Of course not. All sorts of jobs, ranging from easy and relatively safe to difficult and dangerous, are done by people who are willing to assume risk. It is true that your employer does not want you to get hurt. It's bad for business, it's bad for the customers, and it's bad for the bottom line. No one wants their employees to get hurt. Therefore, most workplaces have some safety policies and procedures, all with your safety in mind. But they cannot force you to make safety first or to make it the priority in everything you do. The employer isn't your parent and you're not a child. The key to safety is personal responsibility. Hazards and various degrees of risk from hazards are everywhere, and they cannot be completely eliminated. On the other hand, hazards can be known and they can be understood. Every task you do has to be approached with varying levels of hazard awareness. You can look for and understand the hazards in every job, or you can ignore them. Your job can be approached with care or with a lack of care for safety. All of that is going to be up to you. Don't rely on cute little phrases to make you safe. Rely on yourself. Remember, the key to safety is personal responsibility. Thanks for watching.
Well, that's our today's safety moment. I request you guys to do me a favor. Right up there, there's a small drop down of the view selectivity. I suggest you to click on that and select side by side view so that you can see me on one side, on the other side you can see the presentation, and then you can drop, I mean you drag and you can adjust You want the presentation to be 40%, 60% or 70%, or you want to see me 20% or 40% or 50%. So I would request all of you to please do this favor, have me on the side of the screen and have the presentation on the other side of the screen. So I think all of you got the point through. So let's move further on our program. Now let's quickly dive into the overwhelmed response that we got for our pre-course checklist. So very quickly, I will go into this, and this becomes a very important aspect for me as a trainer to deliver the expectations. The expectations that which are of a similar nature, I have kind of kept it. It's no hard feelings that somebody will say that I was not able to pick up their request. So I've tried my best. It was taken about a couple of hours back. So very quickly we'll go into it and we'll try to understand the needs and requirements and expectations from our participants. So the question was, what is your number one takeaway for this course? And few of them have replied in-depth analysis and applicability of hazard at work functions. Well, my friend, we are not doing hazard today. Hazard by itself is a full training course. So, and then for your knowledge, quick knowledge is hazard is something we do it on a pre-project mode, right? So another gentleman writes here is about continuous learning. Very good. This is what makes HSC professional or any professional to be remain as a professional guy only and only if he continues his learning process. And the next is about knowledge gain. Excellent request. And we are going to, inshallah, get good amount of knowledge through whatever knowledge I have, I'm going to share it with you. Professional development is a very important aspect that one of our participants has asked for it. Yes, this course is towards your professional development. Understand risk assessment. Inshallah, we will make you guys understand the risk assessment. Again, by risk assessment by itself is a good full course. So someday, inshallah, we will do individual aspects of this complete HIRA and RC process as one single courses. Enhance my knowledge to train my company employees. Excellent takeaway. He wants to enhance his knowledge and he wants to cascade it to his fellow workers or his company employees. Excellent. Now another gentleman asked me, my expectation is a difference between qualitative and quantitative risk assessment. My dear friend, a simple, straightforward answer to this is subjective and objective. Qualitative is a subjective approach. Quantitative is an objective approach. And today we are in an objective approach. All the hazard studies are qualitative risk assessments. So let's move on to our next question. Where are the expectations from this? What are the expectations from this course that you wish to apply in your company? The request comes with simple way to understand risk assessments in every job, finding hazards and manage control to help accident prevention. I really like it. The way it has been asked, the point emphasized is help accident prevention. The whole aspect of risk assessment is accident prevention. Excellent. And another gentleman asked about the softwares. Yes, there are a few softwares of risk assessments. However, these are custom made by certain organizations. Even you can, as yourself, start to adopt and create an Excel sheet and make it a software out of an Excel sheet. It is possible, but there are no standard softwares that I can discuss today. Standard references, yes, one straightforward standard reference is ISO 31000. It's risk management. That's a good standard that you can refer to. Prevention of incident and accidents. This is another heart-touching requirement. That's why I put his name, Shaker. One Mr. Shaker has asked, I don't know whether he's there today with us. However, his question is excellent. Prevention of incident and accident. The whole HSC fraternity has to have their priorities stitched around this prevention. We need to be proactive, not a reactive guys. So making up to date and develop company systems with my learning, training, and educational skills. Excellent. Inshallah, we will try to catch up with that. And again, another person here asked for prevent risks. My question here is, can we prevent a risk? No, we manage risk. We don't prevent risk. We manage our risk. We bring down the risk levels to as low as possible and as manageable as possible, right? So we call it acceptable level of risks. So there is nothing called prevention of risk. Every aspect of life has got risk. So we work, our life revolves around risks. So we work to reduce the risks, lower the risks. Okay, so there's nothing called prevention of risk. To learn some easy steps, tricks to identify hazards, risk, and control. My dear friend, there's nothing called tricks. There are steps, there are procedures. So let's, as HSC people, let's not talk about tricks. We will talk about procedures, programs, and practices. Another gentleman asked about deep dive in risk assessment. As I told, risk assessment by itself is another training program. And then I wish I can evaluate and modify risk assessment. I understand the prospect of the question. I believe he's trying to ask is, I want to be so good that I can evaluate and modify any given risk assessment. Inshallah, by end of this program, I promise you, we can, you can go out with this. The next part is, what are the major points that you wish to clarify through this course? On what principle risk assessment works and how to calculate risk management? Well, there's no such principles. There are many ways to do our risk assessments, and one such way is what we are going to discuss today. How to calculate risk metrics, inshallah, I will cover through this program. How to compute probability, severity, and the rate, the risk metrics, inshallah, I will cover through this. Another point is expertise versus existing skills. Well, I don't know if he is trying to, the way I understand that most of the time in my career, the way I have seen in the field, there will always be a tussle between an expertised guy, the guy who is saying, I'm 20 years old, experienced guy, I've been working in this unit, I've been working on this pump. Another guy comes and says that, no, I've been well trained. So there will always be certain amount. So we will discuss this point as we go. Who should be in the team of a risk assessment? So that will try to clarify you. So evaluation of risk at work and how to manage limited resources while making risk assessment. Very interesting question. And then whoever asked it, I'm sure he has gone through certain painful process while doing a risk assessment, because at times it so happens that our good fellow HSC guys, at times they are over enthusiastic. When I say over enthusiastic, they say this about the mitigations never stops. The mitigation just keeps going on. No, we don't do that. We should be as experienced as we can practically demonstrate that this much of mitigation should be good enough. So that's a very important aspect of it. I like it. And then I wonder that I would prefer an example-based study into the topic that would make the course very fruitful. Inshallah, I will try to give you one example, not an issue. And the last is the risk assessment matrix. Inshallah, we will cover the risk assessment matrix. Now, the next is how likely you would recommend this training to your colleague. 90% of the people scale this as 5, and they will recommend it. About 7% scaled it to 4, and about 3% scaled it to 3. Any additional feedback? There's a new courses availability. Mr. Sabdar is sitting there. Mr. Jahid is with us. I'm sure they have a good program lined up. Continuously deliver training for members. Inshallah, they will do it. God bless you. Alhamdulillah. God bless you too, my friend. Please share your presentations, reference study materials, inshallah. I think the chapter is arranging for this, and I think the chapter will be able to pass it on to you. Which level course is this course? I would call this a level 3, competency level 3 course. This is a backbone of any critical job. Whoever said this, he said it very rightly. Critical jobs has to be risk assessed. And then I will try to touch on the aspects or the jobs where you need to do risk assessments. Okay, at times I have seen that anything and everything, they say, okay, let's go for a risk assessment. Good, it's good to do that, but not necessarily that you take up all the team of your 5 or 6 members and sit down for a risk assessment, which is of, a very, very normal job. So you have to be very smart in deciding what kind of job or which job you're supposed to carry out a risk assessment. And then the last thing is, how many of you would like to take away your certificate? That's a overwhelmed request. About 99% of the guys have requested for the certificate. I believe these certificates will be given out by the chapter, and then for a nominal fee, I guess their request, the nominal fee, I don't know whether they have already announced it. I think by the end of the program, maybe Safdar will be able to announce that. So that will be a contribution to the chapter to keep the chapter people, doing the best job to you, and they need to be also funded for that. Now, with these questions and the requests, we will start our today's presentation and the learning process. And I'm sure you will be able to end up this training program with a satisfactory note that, yes, I have learned something today. Now let's see certain definitions and definitions of hazard, danger, and risk. Hazard means a source or a situation with a potential for harm in terms of human injury or ill health or damage to property. It's a very important aspect to understand that hazard is on a potential side, all right? Now, hazard can be divided into 3 main groups. They are health hazard, safety hazard, and environmental hazards. Danger is a relative exposure to hazard, and risk means a combination of likelihood of an occurrence of an hazardous event with specified period or in a specified circumstances, and the severity of the injury or damage to the health of people, property, environment, or any combination of these caused by the event. So this is about the risk. Now, what is HIRARC? Number 1, it's a methodology of assessment of HSC hazards and its risks. And number 2, it is conducted for operational activities, routine and non-routine, or any emergency cases. And it is a systematic approach, and also it's a very important document that you'll have it for monitoring, and further improvement as needed. So every HIRA and RC process is this 4 simple steps of requirements. Now, what's the purpose of HIRA and RC? Number 1, it's a legal requirement to identify all factors that may cause harm to employees and others. What are the factors? I'm talking about identifying the hazards. To consider what the chances are for that harm actually befalling anyone in the circumstances of a particular case and the possible severity that could come from it, that is the risk. And the final purpose, to enable employers to plan, introduce, monitor preventive measures to ensure that the risks are adequately controlled at all times. You see, these virtual training programs are kind of one-sided training. Most of my training, if you have physically attended my training, I'm a very big lover of two-way traffic training. So I would always communicate with my attendees. But this particular way of training, I am literally having a lot of difficulty. Somehow I'm not able to get reactions from you, but that itself is a challenge for me to make you guys understand. So inshallah, I will try my best to give the best of me. Now, planning of HIRA and RC activities. HIRA and RC activities shall be planned and conducted for situations where hazard appear to pose significant threat. You see, this is what I was trying to emphasize in my pre-conference course question there. It has to be conducted for situation where hazard appear to pose significant threat. Uncertain whether existing controls are adequate or not. This is where experience counts. You as a person who is going to execute the job, or you are in a team where a job is going to be executed, you should try and understand and analyze that there are certain existing controls, and you have to decide on whether these existing controls are adequate or not adequate. And before implementing corrective and preventive measures. By organization intending to continuously improve HSE management systems. So who are those people who would like to conduct their HIRA and RC for their activities? Only those organizations who uphold their HSE management as a very important aspect of their organization. Moving further, let's try and understand the process of HIRA and RC. The process of HIRA and RC requires 4 simple steps. To identify all factors that may cause harm to employees and others, that's hazard. Classify work activities. Identify hazard. Conduct your risk assessment. Analyze, estimate risk from each hazard by calculating or estimating. In the beginning, I was talking about today's program is an objective approach. So this is exactly what it is. It's an objective approach. It has to be a quantitative. You have to quantify it. So number 3 is conduct risk assessment, analyze, estimate risk from each hazard by calculating or estimating likelihood of occurrence and severity of hazard. And finally, decide if the risk is tolerable and apply control measures. Now this is where experience again comes in, where we are going to stop, where we see that we are in a tolerable situation. So it depends on how well your mitigation measure post incident are placed. So it is not only about avoiding an incident, it's a very important aspect that if an incident so occurs, what is your readiness? So that also is a big aspect of your risk assessment process. Now let's try and understand the flow chart of HIRARC process. I tried my best to give the best possible graphics, and it is very self-explanatory, but let me just give you a quick, you classify your work, you have your consultation, you have employer representation and a worker representation, you identify hazard, get your risk assessment done, prepare your risk controls, implement, review, and again start the process. I believe this flow chart is very clear. I want you to see this one, please. Interesting. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little video. Again, HIRARC process is a universally known tool to identify, evaluate, assess, and control hazards and risks of any work and activities. It will be able to eliminate, reduce, control the possibility of any accident that occurs. If we implement the process strictly, consistently, and structurally, inshallah, we will not have any incident coming out of that activity. Now, moving further, now let's go and talk about what is a risk assessment. I believe we were supposed to do some polling here. So before we move on to risk assessment, let's try to do a polling here. So let's try and do polling here, okay? Give me a minute. I will introduce a polling here. Is it launched? Yeah. Are you guys able to see? Right.
Yes, yes.
Yes, it's good, good, good. Oh, great response. Good number of percentage have given an excellent answer, and I end the process here. It's about 30 seconds. So I'm very happy, very satisfied. A good number of people are correct. Thank you very much. And then we continue our program here now. So risk assessment. So risk assessment means the process of evaluating a risk to safety and health arising from hazards at work. Now, what's hazard control? Hazard control means the process of implementing measures to reduce the risk associated with hazard. Fair enough? Is it very clear? I tried my best to get you the best possible explainable, understandable definitions. Now, hierarchy of control. This is a very important aspect of risk management. Hierarchy of control means the established priority order for the type of measure to be used to control risks. You see how it says? So you establish priorities, all right? Now, what's an hazard identification? Hazard identification means the identification of undesired events that lead to materialization of hazard and the mechanism by which those undesired events could occur. I hope you're all still with me, okay? Hazard identification means the identification of undesired events that led to the materialization of hazard and the mechanism by which those undesired events could occur. The purpose of hazard identification is to highlight the critical operations of tasks, that is, those tasks posing significant risks. So there is always very important that we all try to understand that what are those significant risks that are there towards the health and safety of employees, as well as highlights those hazards pertaining to certain equipment due to energy sources, working conditions, or activity performed. I hope that explains. Let's try and understand hazard identifications. Workplace inspections. How do you go through hazard identification? You have workplace inspections, you have task safety analysis or job hazard analysis, you have preliminary investigations, you have potential accident factors, you have failure analysis conducted, and you have the past records of accidents and incident investigations. So basically, these are the tools that you have towards hazard identification. I guess we need to launch another kind of, no, I think we can, yeah, I think better we launch another quick polling, guys, so that during this 30-second, you can, kind of relax a bit. All right, go ahead. MashaAllah. Thirty seconds. Well, the answer for this is ISO 31000. In fact, if people are listening to my words, I clearly pronounced this standard. I clearly said that 31000 is the risk management ISO standard that we can always refer. Excellent. Excellent response. Thank you very much. So I'm sure all of you are still there with me while attending this poll. Very interesting. Thank you very much. Moving further, we will try and understand the risk management. Now, what is a risk management? It's a procedure associated with identifying an hazard, assessing the risk, putting in place control measures, and reviewing the outcome. Very simple. Risk management means the total procedure associated with identifying hazard, assessing the risk, putting in place control measures, and coming back and reviewing the outcome of this procedure. Clear enough? Now let's see the basic components of risk management. Hazard identification, risk assessment, risk control, and we come back and do the review. Now, what is risk? Risk is something that we as individuals live with on day-to-day basis. People are constantly making decisions based on risk. Simple decision in daily life, such as driving, crossing the road, money investment, all apply an acceptable risks. So as I was saying, there is nothing called eliminating of risk. There is always reducing the risk. Risk is a combination of likelihood and severity of a specified hazardous event occurring. It's very important. In mathematical term, risk assessment can be calculated as likelihood into severity. Clear? Whereas the likelihood is an event likely to occur within a specific period or in specified circumstances, and severity is the outcome of an event such as severity of injury or health of people or damage to property or insult to environment or any combination of those caused by the event. So these are few definitions, and then further before we move on, I really want you to be with me and watch this excellent video.
Moving machine parts have caused severe workplace injuries like crushed fingers or hands, amputations, burns, blindness, and fatalities. Machine guards are engineered to protect workers from becoming injured. For example, the guard pictured here covers a moving power assembly. When it is removed, you can see a flywheel that is used to pull enormous weight with its energy coming from a powerful motor. When this machine is operating, it poses a dangerous hazard without a guard in place. If a piece of your clothing got caught up in the moving wheel, it would pull your entire body in and cause severe and in many cases fatal injuries. Guards protect workers from the hazards associated with flywheels, fan blades, screw conveyors, and power transmission equipment. Guards also protect other points of access to machine tools, such as the side and rear openings in machinery. Workers should not be able to reach around, under, through, or over fixed guards. Machine guards also reduce the hazards from sparks or broken machinery. Fires resulting from inadequate machine guarding have destroyed businesses. Severe injuries can occur when guards aren't in place to stop machine parts that fail and are thrown out at high speed. Accidental contact is a major risk during the operation of a machine, but some workers will tell you that machine guards can slow an operation down, so they are encouraged to remove or bypass them. Unfortunately, removing a machine guard takes a hazardous condition and makes it much worse. Unauthorized removal, circumvention, or adjustment of fixed guards creates unnecessary risk. Accident investigations often show that guards are removed and not replaced following maintenance, installation, and repair. Guards are bypassed when work requires occasional access to hazard zones, such as during machine setup, clearing of jams, lubrication, and so on. But the machine should be completely shut down and protected from resuming operation until the guards are replaced. Working around any moving machinery has potential hazards. Know the hazards and control them before and during operation.
So why did we view this particular video here? How many of us have come across something called human factor, human behavior? This video I intentionally put here kind of a reminder to each one of us that we need to watch those workers who are so much into their behavior that they don't care that whether they have put their guards or they have removed the guards. They just don't care. So the human factor, human behavior. Now coming back to human factor, talking about human factor, 95% of the major accidents or accidents have been caused because of human factor. Though in our present investigation process, we don't point a finger towards an individual. We take that finger more towards the knowledge that this worker was not having. So preparing a HIRARC itself is not enough. How well we as safety guys do this process and go ahead and cascade this information down to the last worker involved in the activity. If we are not able to do this, we are not doing justice of preparing an excellent HIRA program or a risk assessment program. So you as safety, we as safety guys, we go out there and we form a team, and within the team, we have a very experienced process guys, very experienced maintenance guys, very experienced welder, or a very experienced maintenance supervisor. And then you sit down and then you put everything on a nice paper or in a soft copy. And then you say that, oh, we are going to take X, Y, Z mitigations. And then these are the hazards discussed, understood. But when the activity is really performed, does that supervisor perform? Does that safety engineer or an officer who was sitting in the risk assessment committee is performing? Does that operations guy is performing? Does that maintenance engineer is performing? I guess no. So who is going to conduct that activity? So we should take this risk assessment or an HIRA program, cascade it all the way down to that last level of worker. So that's why in my HIRA process, when I showed you the flow diagram, I had an indication of participation, a participation from the employee side and a participation from an employer side. So like, for example, you have a client and if a client wants to conduct an risk assessment, there is always a recommendation to have a participation of a contractor. So without a contractor's participation, none of your risk assessments, I will guarantee you, are success. I intentionally keep my screen white because I'm talking. So let's move on to our next subject here. When to carry out risk assessment: before operation, during operation, and after operation. Now, before we do this continue, I would like to pull one more question here. Interesting. And very, very interesting. uh, very much on the screen it is there. When we are supposed to conduct a risk assessment, we are supposed to conduct a risk assessment before an activity, and during an activity you can stop and then you can continue to do a risk, because there may be a change during your operations, right? So there should be a change, right? So you want to share the results? Okay, so the answer is A, B, and C. Okay, I will request you to clarify that. So talking about when to carry out risk assessment, ideally it should be before operations, perfectly right. But during the operations, if something goes wrong and some hazards come up which was not envisaged, which was not understood by any of the team members, then what you do, you stop your operations and you're going to reassess your hazard. Post operations, yes, you have to continue to do your post operations risk assessment as well. So when do you review your risk assessments? You have to review your risk assessment during internal operations, before modifications, changes, or introduction of newer material and machineries and process, working process, for externally due to the legal requirement. Moving forward, how do we classify hazard? I think a little while back, I already told you about this, but let's classify the hazard. We have physical hazards, and because, as I told you, each one of the topic which I have clubbed here requires a class, a full class by itself. So talking about classification of hazards, physical hazards, those are mechanical, electrical, in the mechanical sharp points, sharp edges, overloading, electrical cords, insulations, wire covers, electrical live equipments. So these are few physical hazards that you have to look for. We have biological hazards, and then we have chemical hazards, exposure to carcinogenic chemicals, and we have ergonomic, and we have psychological. Now, this psychological aspect has become a very important aspect. We talk about stress, we talk about harassments, and we talk about violence. So stress can be in many ways. Nowadays, the in thing what we have here, in fact, inshallah, if everything goes well, I will try and help to bring in a very good doctor trainer who talks about mental science. And all this stress which has come up, this has become an in thing now. And also ISO 45001 very much talks about stress. Before we go to likelihood of occurrence, I just need to go back to the stress. In the chat box, I don't know, are we able to get some chat messages already, Mr. Sabdar? I think so, we are getting, okay.
Sir, it's
we are getting
just
some
muted, sir.
chat.
All right, thank you very much.
We are getting some chat.
Very good, thank you.
I will post you later on. It will be a little disturbance.
Okay, so what we do is, if you think there are some relevant questions that you would like to quickly put across, we can at this point of time take a quick 2-3 minutes break, and then we can have the chat box questions to be floated in, so that we will take a break, as well as we'll have this, because we already almost an hour since we have been talking here. So we can take a quick break. So before we break, I'm talking about stress. So how many of you have experienced an accident related to stress? Please put a short example in your chat box. So, which is, I think you should put it across so that everybody can view it, not only to the host. So I will break now for a quick few minutes, Mr. Safdar.
Yes.
Okay, guys.
Yes.
So
Yes.
now it is about what's the time?
2
now?
minute quick break.
Yeah, 2 to 3 minutes. Right, fine. Okay. So will you be sharing that chat, or is there a need to do that?
Yes, I am opening the chat for a time being to take up some question so far we have discussed. Riaz.
Already open. Safdar, it is already
Yeah, it's
open.
already open.
Gentlemen, if you are having any question, kindly post your question. Now, there was earlier announcement sent that you will be getting e-certificate by paying a nominal fee of 5 KD. Those who are interested can drop an email to info@kuwait.asp.org or our WhatsApp number 50941075. I will post the same thing. Riazul Haq, can you post our WhatsApp number?
Yes, sir, sure.
And our email address.
Okay, okay.
A request to all participants, kindly post your question which is relevant to the training right now. The other question we will take up at the end if the times permit, and we'll come back to you by another reply by email. You have long questions. There are many training plans. Kindly visit our SSP website. Riazul, can you post our
Yes,
SSP site?
Safdarji already posted that.
Again, do it again, so people will who are joined lately, they will be knowing on this.
Yes, done. Done, eh?
Okay, great.
Okay, fine.
All right. Are we back on our laptops? Safdar, you're with me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Riaz with you.
Yes, sir. Safdar also with us.
Okay.
Let's
fine.
continue.
Okay. So we'll continue our training now. Please, I request all of you to mute your mics because I feel there's an echo here. Okay, so we just talked about classification of hazards. And I was talking about how stress has affected a lot of, has become a very important aspect in many investigations that I was involved, accident investigation. And unfortunately, I was also involved in investigating one fatal incident. Again, that fatal incident, unfortunately, was due to stress. And it happened about 2 a.m. in the night, unfortunately. So stress has become a very, very important aspect to be considered during your risk assessments. So moving forward, likelihood of occurrence. Likelihood is an event Likelihood is an event likely to occur within a specific period or in a specific circumstances. So my dear friends, I've been insisting on this word from my initial presentation, that the word specific is very important here in my presentation, in my training, if you have noticed it. So likelihood is an event likely to occur within that specific period or in a specific circumstances. So the likelihood example and rating here, most likely, the most likely result of the hazard event being released, and you are for sure that this is going to happen, then you rate it as number 5. Then next is possible, has a good chance of occurring and not usually and not unusual. I hope you understood the sentence. There is, when you're analyzing your likelihood, so you are kind of having a knowledge that there is a good chance of occurring and it's not unusual, then you put it as number 4 rating. Convincible might be at some time in future. It is not going to happen now, but might be sometime. The next is remote. The likely is very remote, has not been known to occur after many years. Like for example, the team who are sitting together, when they are putting their risk assessment, so when the hazard comes in, then they get said, oh, I've not heard of it for about, no, not in my last 10 years, I've not heard about it. I don't know. So then it becomes rating number 2. The inconvincible aspect is impractically impossible and has never occurred. So this is very important, that the last bit is no, it is, I have never seen it, I have never heard of it, such a thing happening due to this hazard, then you mark it as rating number 1. Now let's move on the severity of hazard. The severity of hazard is the outcome of an event, right? Catastrophic. What do you mean by catastrophic severity? Now, by now, I think you guys have understood what is the severity is all about. I talked about it in the definition as well. So these examples will emphasize on what is the severity. The severity is basically, if you think that when we do this activity, and if an accident does occur, then there will be a catastrophic result. Now, what is the catastrophic result? Example, in numerous fatalities, irrecoverable property damage, and productivity. You rate it as number 5. Then you have a fatal incident, approximately one single fatality, major property damage if the hazard is released. You mark it as number 4. It's a serious scenario, non-fatal injury, but permanent disability. You know that this scaffolding, if this guy is going to fall down, I'm sure, even if it's not going to be fatal, I'm sure it will be a permanent disability. So it has to be noted as rated 3. And if it is a minor one, disabling but not permanent injury, and negligible, minor bruises, cuts, first aid, if you think that will be the result of that incident happening, then you put it as number 1 rating. So basically, this is how you work towards your likelihood and the severity. Now we try to move towards how we are going to put these ratings into a matrix, and then see how we tabulate it, and we come out about our risk rating, whether the risk is high, low, or medium. Now let's talk about risk. Risk can be calculated using the formula likelihood and severity. All right. So I think I need a polling here. Let's see if I can put a poll here. The surprising that I remember the polling after I have literally given you an answer. There you go. Of course, there'll be 100%. You have already seen it. All right. I would request all of you to go into your chat box and then give me a quick thumbs up or thumbs down or whatever you would want to do it. Um, that you are okay with my speed, you're okay with my pronunciation, you are able to hear me very well. I would request you to do that very quickly so that Mr. Riazul and Mr. Safdar will be able to give me a hint. All right. So let's move forward. Risk can be calculated. Please mute. Okay, thank you. Risk can be calculated using the formula. Guys, please mute your mics. Okay, thank you. So risk can be calculated using the formula likelihood and severity. It's a relative risk, and risk rating is with a matrix with the severity here and the likelihood here. So it is 5 by 5 table of matrix, we call it. All right. So it's a 5 by 5 table of matrix. So one of the question in my pre-course, the gentleman was asking, help us, how do we do a risk rating calculation in the matrix? So very simple mathematics. It's the scale has to be put from left to right and bottom to top. All right. So this is 5 by 5 risk matrix. So let's say that the likelihood is 5 and the severity is 1. So 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 3 severity is 15. 5 times 4 severity is 20. And 5 times 5 severity is 25. So it is as simple as that. So this metric talks about you have 4 likelihood and you have 4 severity, and 4 by 4 is 16. So this area, if your risk rating falls within this area, this is called a high risk zone. A very important mantra that every single risk assessment group have to have during the risk assessment is, if you're not able to bring down the risk to an acceptable level or to a low risk, then please mark my words, don't do it. Did I make myself very clear? If you're not able to bring down your risk level, risk rating below your acceptable or low risk and acceptable or tolerable risk level, then you should not be doing the job. You should not be doing that activity. Let me give an example of, as one of the gentlemen was asking, sir, give me examples during your presentation. Yes, one is example. I wish, if it is one-to-one, it's a different aspect, but anyway, one such, if I can remember, one such incident, it so happened that there was a gas pipe inside heater tubes. I don't know if how many of you can visualize with me. There's a huge fired heater. Within the fired heater, there are a lot of tubes. big pipelines or piping. So this tube was vibrating and vibrating severely. So the unit cannot be shut down because there is a huge demand on the product. So the management told us, please do us a risk assessment and let us know whether can we continue this unit to run or should we stop the unit. Interesting scenario. Well, so we all sat down for a quick risk assessment and we went on to do all possible efforts to bring down the risk level to an acceptable mode. We went on to do risk and then we completed our risk and then we found out that it is high risk. So we went to the management and management said, please take one more round of your discussion and see what best we can do it, because the product was in high demand, and if you shut down the unit, there will be a big financial impact. That the team was asked to revisit the risk assessment. So we revisited the risk assessment. We sat down again for a good round of risk assessment discussion. Then we came out again that this risk will be high. Then we went back to the management and management accepted our request and they told us, go ahead and shut down the unit. So this is what you have to take it as your very important aspect. Just because you have this tool, it doesn't mean that you conduct a risk assessment, oh no, it's high risk, we cannot do it. No, we as experienced guys, any risk assessment, that's why we emphasize and we encourage that the risk assessments to be carried out with experienced people. Not everybody and anybody can come out to be a risk assessing, to be in the risk assessment team. You have to be an experienced group of people. So when we say experienced group of people, is those guys, when they say that the likelihood is going to be 3, the likelihood is going to be 4, the likelihood is going to be 5, then they have to prove it. They cannot just say it. They need to prove it. They need to give the examples. So how can he give the examples if he's not an experienced guy? So he has to be an experienced person in order to quantify, justify his stance. Okay, so there is a question here talking about stress due to present scenario. Present scenario, of course, it's about COVID. Unfortunately, I am also sitting here with good amount of stress. Why? For the simple reason that just yesterday, unfortunately, my cousin's father-in-law passed away just yesterday. Unfortunately, in less than 6 hours, he was taken to the hospital, and within 6 hours, unfortunately, he passed away. So the present situation is a very demanding situation where the stress levels are so very high, and then we need to do that extra bit in order to control our stress. And particularly when we are out there doing a very hazardous type of jobs, there is situation all over the world where back home certain families are alone, so you are under stress. Kuwait itself is having a good amount of situation there, again stress. So please, my dear friends, do your best to take care of your stress levels, and then be very careful when you're out there in your work areas. I really wish you a very safe stay and work. Moving on to our next item is risk rating. So now we talked about this, how that particular portion becomes high risk. So how do we justify it? Anything which is 15 to 25 becomes a high risk. A high risk requires immediate action to control the hazard as detailed in the hierarchy of control. Action taken must be documented on the risk assessment form, including the date of completion. All right. Now, 5 to 12 rating is a medium, whereas a medium risk requires a panel approach to control the hazard and apply temporary measure if required. Actions taken must be documented on the risk assessment form, including date of completion. Is a very important aspect. And 1 to 4 is a low risk. A risk identified as low must be considered as acceptable, and further reduction may not be necessary. However, if the risk can be resolved quickly, efficiently, control measures should be implemented and recorded. See, everywhere we talk about recording and recording and recording. It's very interesting, very important aspect of it. One such example I would like to give you, that in fact I emphasize, and I cannot stop emphasizing on this again and again. The risk assessment team are the best possible people in an organization. So this best possible people in the organization, they sit together and they come up with an excellent risk assessment, with an excellent mitigation control measures, and all the relative actions. They sign it, and ultimately what they do, they put it in a file. And where is the risk assessment? The risk assessment is kept in their offices. So now what happens it? Okay, I have a question that I need to clarify it. So let me go back to the risk panel, because I don't mind taking questions during the presentation. I would love to do that. I hope I can be able to go back. Okay. All right. Okay. So somebody is asking for a clarification on this again. The clarification here is why you say 15, 20, 25, 16, 20, 15 is high risk. Why this is not high risk? This is probably the question. When I started showing this table, I told you this is called 5 by 5 matrix. So this 5 by 5 matrix was built. It was not built and put there just like that. This was designed, analyzed, worked by highly professional people, and then they came out with this formula of 5 by 5 matrix. And with this 5 by 5 matrix, they found that, see, if it is severity is 1 and the likelihood is 1, that means likelihood times severity is 1. Okay, so likelihood is 2 and the severity is 2, then it falls to 4. So still it is low. Why? Because if you see the likelihood and go back to my table over there describing about the likelihood, so you need to review this. Remote has not been known to occur after many years. So you need to read this matrix table along with this table. Then probably you will try to get answers to your questions. All right. So let's move further on that. Similarly for other aspects also. Similarly for 5 times 3 severity, it's 15. So this falls on high risk. If you go back to the table over there, about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of severity, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of likelihood. It's very obvious that you yourself, you can tabulate it and see why 15, 20, 25, 16, 20, and 15 is in the high risk zone. I hope I answered the question for the person who was asking for it. So further, as I told you, the risk rating, and then we are okay with this. Moving forward, as we have, I think, another 20 minutes. So inshallah, I will try to finish before 20 minutes. So talking about risk control. How do you define risk control? Control is the elimination or inactivation of hazard in a manner such that the hazard does not pose a risk to workers who have to enter into an area or work in equipment in the course of the scheduled work. Is it clear? What do you mean by control? Control is the elimination or inactivation of an hazard in a manner such that the hazard does not pose a risk to the worker who have to enter into an area or work in the equipment in the course of his scheduled work. You have given activity for him during this period, wherever he's working and whatever his activity you have defined to be carried out, defined B. If you tell him to work on pump A, and if he goes and work on a pump B, then there's a problem. So that's why we are insisting on this aspect of specific. So you got to be specific. Your risk assessment is specific, objective to that particular area, to that particular activity, to the particular circumstances. If that differs, your risk assessment gets deferred. Hazards should be controlled at their source. It's a very important aspect. Please, my friends, please try to understand this, that you need to stop your hazards at the source where the problem is created. The closer a control to the source of the hazard is, the better one. This method is often referred as applying engineering control. Very clear? Now, let's try and understand if this does not work, the engineering control. Hazard can often be controlled along the path to the worker, between the source and the worker. You couldn't do the engineering control, so they will move forward, and what you do, you build a barrier between a worker and a source. So what would be that barrier? That can be administrative control. So this barrier, what you build, will be an administrative control. Further, the last of the risk control measures is, if this is not possible, hazard must be controlled at the level of the worker through the use of PPEs, although this is the least desirable control. So let me go back. It's a very important aspect in your risk control. Number one, elimination, inactivation. That means don't allow the hazard to come near to the worker. Then you have engineering control. Then you have administrative control, and then you have your PPE. I have just given you a little more descriptive situation here. At the source of the hazard, eliminate and inactivate, substitute. Engineering control, redesign, isolation, automation, barrier, absorption, dilution. Or we call it 3R, remove, reduce, replace. I hope you're able to see the screen. And then finally, we have administrative controls, safe work practice, supervision, training, job rotation, housekeeping, hygiene, and then we have PPE. Then if you see the triangle of control, the top, the broader one, you should do your best to have an elimination and substitution. The next good layers, you have to try your engineering controls, and then you should have administrative control, and finally you should adopt your PPE controls. I hope it is understood. I think I'd like to emphasize on this part. The 3 R's. The 3 R's is remove, reduce, replace. Remove during the workplace designing phase. Any equipment not meeting the occupational health standard should not be used. Remove it. Reduce. Levels of hazardous substance can be reduced by proper ventilation through exhaust fans. There is a situation where you can reduce the level, reduce it. Replacement. High risk equipment or substance should be replaced by low risks. So these are the 3 R's in a risk control. Any doubt of this? I think I made it very clear on that. So moving on, the monitoring of controls. While evaluating, monitoring hazard controls, following questions to be asked. When you're doing your evaluation of your controls, you need to ask yourself, have the controls solved the problem? You had a problem. You put a control measure there. Has it solved? Ask yourself. Is any risk to workers posed by these controls contained? You have to ask this question. So that's why every aspect of this becomes very important. Okay. Are all new hazards being identified? Now, what is new hazards? These new hazards are basically which occur. If you see, when can we conduct the risk assessment? Pre-operation, during operation. So these are the new hazards which come up during an operations. Any significant new hazards appropriately controlled? Are accident reports being analyzed? Are any other measures required? So these are very important monitoring tool. So let's move to now our HIRA and RC form. Ideally, your HIRA and RC form should be having these many aspects. You should have a company or a department name. You should have the process and location. When I say process, I don't know, I can give you endless examples of live accidents that unfortunately I was there to kind of either investigate, or I was there to witness it in a way that has happened. And one of the very important aspect after an investigation was, my recommendation was that when you go and work on any pipelines, I have put this point that in your risk assessment, please specify your process. There was an incident where clean acid gas had leaked, and then there was one fatal incident. And nobody knew what is the clean acid gas is all about. So they didn't know what is the process. Basically, the clean acid gas is 98% concentration of H2S. Not many people knew about this. Unfortunately, we lost that one worker. Then we have to have a guy who's going to approve it, should have the date or reference numbers, and the very important, conducted by, there should be a person who is going to initiate this one. So that's very important. You should have a review date and the next review date. Then you should have hazard identification, risk analysis, and risk controls. And then here you can see work activity, hazard, and which can cause and affect existing risk control, if any. So, and the likelihood of this, severity of this, and the risk rating, and whether it is high, medium, or low. Then we have the HIRA team members to be signed off. So ideally, your HIRA and RC form should have a minimum of this many aspects to be covered. I think I have an example here. I can run through that example quickly. Like for example, I filled in some name, ONG maintenance, activity process is a pipe erection, approved by David, construction head, conducted by Smith, construction engineer, and we have from which date to which date this risk assessment is valid, and then there's a date, and there's some reference number, and then we have a review date and the next review date. And then we have, let's say, I just given you one example here, erection of working platform at level 7, unguarded floor you have there where the guys are supposed to go and erect a platform. Then if this situation is there, what is likely to occur if there is an incident? There will be a head injury or a fatal. So what is the risk analysis? And the existing risk control, they had only a safety helmet. They had no other thing. You understand? So the base, you have to be able to put what is your existing controls. Like for example, you may be better equipped. You will say, I have a safety harness, I have fall protection, I have a safety net. So these are your existing controls. So if you have those existing controls, then naturally your likelihood and severity will drop down. Then severity will become 2 or 3, likelihood become 2. Even the likelihood remains 4, the severity will become less. You understand? So automatically your risk rating will reduce. If the severity is, let's say, 2 or 1, so naturally it will become 4, it will fall into low risk. So if the risk is high, then you put your risk controls, recommendations: fence upper floor, exposed edges, establish safe work procedures, use job safety analysis, and then what you do, person in charge and the due date. One Mr. Raj is being given this responsibility, one Mr. Abdullah is given responsibility. They have been asked to complete this task of these control measures. If this is control measures is taken, you come back and reassess with this. Now this control measures will become your existing risk, and then tabulate your risk analysis, then it will fall down to low. The likelihood more or less remains the same. The guy may fall, but the severity will be very less, or the likelihood may also fall down and the severity also may fall down. When I say fall down, I mean to say the ratings. And then this is your team. A very important aspect is you have David signed off, you have Smith, Fahad, and then somebody by name Sony for subcontractor. Very important aspect. Next, I would request you to kind of use such diagrams so that you can circulate among your workforce and ask them to identify, spot the hazard, so they get encouraged and they understand. You try to educate them through these processes. Very important aspect. Now, lastly, before I kind of move out of this presentation or the course, it's a very important aspect that I talk about: Swiss cheese accident cost suggestion model of James Reasons. So it's a very important model. It's a very proven thing. I have tried to use this multiple times, and then it has been very effective. So I tried my best to give you this graphic. I'm sure the graphic explains it better than my words. So I put an activity as hot work, and there's a hazard here. Of course, when you conduct a hot work, there's a fire. So what we have these are our barriers. So we have a barrier of safety policy, we have a barrier of procedures, SOPs, we have a work permit to carry out this activity, we have an alarming process in place where if there is any smoke or anything, smoke detections will happen. And finally, we have a good amount of PPE also. But what are these few holes here? So these are the holes in the cheese. These barriers will always have some holes. When these holes of each of those barriers on one fine day get aligned, and then if this aligned, then the hazard travels through these holes and we will end up with an unfortunate, undesirable accident. In some case, when this travels through these holes and gets it hit to this procedure and goes back, sometimes it travels from here, but unfortunately it doesn't get a hole here, it goes back. So that means each of these barrier has got holes, but these holes, if not supervised, taken care, and regularly being followed without any holes, then one fine day there will be holes matched and there will be an accident. So these holes are called basically the lagging indicators, respond to detection of holes, and these barriers are basically called the leading indicators. Now here, before I'm going to talk about this incident, you just see here that the failures, CMOP failure, worker working out of man basket, a poor JSI, poor HIRA and RC, man lift operations, space is restricted, poor fire retardant tarpaulin, no fire first aid firefighting nearby, workforce not trained to use fire extinguisher, poor supervision, poor housekeeping, you name it. You see the amount of failures which has happened. So this is how you have to analyze your activities. Unfortunately, I see this video is being circulated in some WhatsApp, and they were talking about, see how lucky wearing a safety belt. I don't know when we all going to get educated in understanding what is a safety belt and what is a safety harness. This gentleman who is hanging there was wearing a safety harness, not a safety belt. Clarification. Now, before I really sign out, I would like to put this on your screen. When a HSE speaks, nobody listens to him. When an accident occurs, everyone points a finger on the HSE guy. So you have to be extra careful. In a way, you have to be present in all possible work areas, in all possible places, so that you can be there to identify and inform all of your workforce on this one. So finally, we will quickly go into the Q&A for today. And then if there is some Q&A, Mr. Safdar, I can just go through it. If anything is there, I can. Okay, somebody's asking, do we need to evaluate residual risk? If you see the risk assessment form, what we mentioned there, it talks about that. Okay, so it's very clearly mentions that the existing control. If you have heard me saying that you put your control measures, and after you put that control measure, bring that control measure into your, that control measure becomes your existing control measures, and then that control measures again you evaluate then that becomes your residual risk. So you have to calculate your residual risk as well. So if you would have seen my presentation and you would have concentrated on that, I had used the word hazards occurring during a job. So when I say hazards occurring during the job is called as residual hazards. So what do you mean by residual hazards basically? It's not that the hazard coming out after an activity. And this is a hazard which starts off along the process of the activity, right? So when you're carrying out an activity, like first I'll give you a good example. Fine. So there's an example of a group getting inside a confined space. And then they've been given, the confined space is free, atmospheric entry, it's no hazard, everything is cleared, everything job. So what is the activity is being given? The activity is given to power brush cleaning. This can be one example. Then example number two, there is a welding group which goes inside and then they are asked to carry out a welding activity in a confined space. So these two of the activities, when you carry out this activity, will there be an extra hazard created other than the existing hazard? The answer is yes. What are those hazards? Like when you're carrying out the welding, there is smoke created. So you have to put your control measure to ensure that this residual hazard created while conducting your activity has also to be mitigated. I hope I answered the question for you there. Is there any other question? During assessment, matrix scale 5 is high risk, but at the same time, management may like to continue the operation without taking shutdown to run the unit. If so, who will lead the? A very good question. I don't know. One Mr. Shaker again. He says, in fact, Mr. Shaker, I was one of what you call it. I've experienced firsthand this situation. The question here is, dear friends, is during a risk assessment, matrix scale falls in high risk. So you conducted a risk assessment and the risk assessment has fallen into high risk. Now he says that the management asks us to go ahead and do the job. Then he asks the question, who is responsible? Mr. Shaker, the management is responsible. All right. So to give you an example, these kind of activities has to be signed off by the in charge, the general manager, the CEO. They have to sign it off. The manager of the unit, they have to sign it off. Giving you an example, we do a lot of pneumatic tests. So pneumatic test is bound to have certain amount of issues. And if there is a failure, what is a failure? Catastrophic failure. So by default, these pneumatic tests conducted should be signed off by the top management. So they say, avoid your pneumatic test. Don't do it. If it so demands that you have to conduct your pneumatic test, whether it's a vessel or a pipeline or whatever equipment you have, then you have to have a management approval. So who stands responsible to answer your question? In simple words, the management is responsible. Risk assessment team makes the risk assessments, they sign it, it is high, the request goes to the management and the management stands responsible. He signs off, thank you for your risk assessment, I know it is high, please go and do the job. They stand responsible. Finally, risk assessment could be approved by subject matter experts formed as risk assessment to approve all risk assessments. I don't know what is the question here by, I think it's Binoy. Yeah. So he talks about finally risk assessment could be approved by subject matter expert formed by risk assessment committee to approve all risk assessment. I don't agree. I don't recommend. There is nothing called a risk assessment team and a subject matter experts risk assessment team. I don't agree, I don't encourage. The risk assessment team from the beginning itself should be a subject matter experts. You cannot have one layer of risk assessment team. On top of them, there's another layer of risk assessment team who evaluate it. No, it doesn't work that way. The very beginning of your risk assessment planning should be through subject matter experts. I think that answers the question. Is there any other question, Mr. Sabdar? I think
Sir, there was a question.
Yeah.
How to point out, how to focus on right risk at right time in right way.
Sorry, come again.
How to point out, how to focus on right risk at right time in right way.
Okay.
I understand based on the risk assessment, the matrix number.
No. I understand his question. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr.
Yeah.
I don't know who has asked this question. If he's still there,
Mr. Akhtar Hussain Muhammad. Akhtar Hussain Muhammad.
Mr. Akhtar, straightforward answer to your question is experience. If you are not experienced in understanding this activity for which you are going to conduct the risk assessment, you are not qualified to be in that risk assessment team. When I say you, I don't mean you. I mean to say the member of the risk assessment team. So the question doesn't arise, what is the right measure? What is the right time? That's why all the risk assessment team has to be experienced subject matter experts. If there is a process involved, there should be a process engineer, not a college, come out from the college, newly joined in the company. No, he will not be allowed to be the risk assessment guy. Whoever is leading the risk assessment team, like for example, I can give an example here. There was a situation where we had to take the whole unit for shutdown. There was a serious issue that where we wanted to have a complete unit shutdown. So the risk assessment was called by the manager operations, not by the unit in charge, not by the team leader. Who called the risk assessment? Manager operations. And in the list of participants to the risk assessment was the team leader of maintenance, the team leader of operations, the team leader of safety, the team leader of instrumentation, the team leader of process engineering. So that's the level of people they want them to participate in that. Why? They are the subject matters. No process engineer was invited. No, an engineer level was invited. Only a senior level and above was invited for this assessment. So this is a very important aspect in any risk assessment process. You should have experienced guys. If for some reason, let's take an example of yourself. If you have been asked by your superiors, go and conduct a risk assessment for such and such a thing, you can go there, assess the situation, assess the hazard, and if you think that you are not capable, you don't have the experience to carry out this risk, you better put your foots down. You better inform your superiors, hey, I am not experienced to give you the best possible control measures. I'm sorry for that. It's better for you to step down rather than getting into a wrong risk assessment and ending up with a wrong or relatively a bad risk assessment. So I think that answers the questions. Do we still need to take any actions, questions?
Sir, there is one question. What's difference between qualitative and quantitative risk? This question from Mohammad Jamilur Rahman Khan.
I'm sorry, he was not in my presentation. That's the answer for the question. The very beginning of my presentation, I explained what is quantitative and what is qualitative. Subjective, objective. Qualitative is subjective, quantitative is objective. Today's program is objective, is quantifying your risk. Qualitative is a hazard program. You conduct pre-project risk assessments. That's a qualitative. Quantitative is what we just finished. You quantify your risks. You put your control measures. You know that there will be 3 fatal incidents. You know that there will be a first aid case. You know that the severity will be this one. You know the likelihood is going to happen if you miss on that. So this is a quantifiable risk assessment. I hope they answer the question.
There is another some kind of like suggestion. Sometimes it's observed that risk assessment is not properly communicated to the ground level worker in their language, which is a higher risk. What do you have to say about these things?
I have touched this point that many of the risk assessment. In fact, I gave an example also of a fatal incident where when we asked where is the risk assessment was kept in the office. They didn't knew. They carried out the job and there was a fatal incident, unfortunately. So this has happened. Anyways, I think that answers the questions. And before I close this presentation, I have a last one more slide here that I would like to share all of you. Hi guys, finally we come to the end of today's training program. It's been an exciting 2 hours of participation, 2 hours of knowledge sharing, and I'm sure you enjoyed the training as much as I enjoyed delivering this training. I really thank you all for the participation of all of you. Finally, I would like to extend my thanks to Mr. Fadel, to Mr. Ritvik, Jahid, Mazhar, Safdar, our brother, Ashok, Vasu, Moideen, Sunil, Reddy, Mr. Chari, Ahmed, Alamgir, Bala, Amir, and all the ESCOM members of the newly elected committee of 2020 and 2021. And also I would like to extend my thanks to Rishi, Ramana, and Riaz. And thank you very much. Thank you all of you, and have a very good night. Thank you. I'm done for the day. I think I'm just at the right time, though I was given about 20 minutes past, and I'm done. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Safdar, am I loud and clear?
Yes, yes. Carry on.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Riyaz Sharif, for an enlightening and entertaining presentation on this hazard identification, risk assessment, risk control. We really appreciate having the way you make things simple, actually, to understand with examples. And the participants may not know this, Mr. Riyaz, but we owe you a special vote of thanks for being here with conflicting timing. It is nearly, I think, 2:40 a.m. in Malaysia, right, sir?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So thanks. We really appreciate that, and thanks a lot for that. And there were more than 100 participants at all the time, and I'm dedicating today's victory to you, Riyasa. Thank you so much. And thanks to all participants also for attending and for active participation. We hope that you found the training program informative, right? Our primary goal was to increase your understanding about HIRA and risk control. Riyaz Savas did an outstanding job for sharing his expertise with us. So if you would like to ask any question, please post them to SSP. Today, tomorrow, you can do that. And you are a great group. Thank you so much. Please, you just go through the chat box and you will find a feedback form for your comments and suggestions. Please go through the evaluation and provide your suggestions if any, and we will give consideration for future training and workshop. Please make note that what you have learned shall transfer back to your job, right? And if we can be of any help in any way, please feel free to contact us at info@kuwait.assp.org. I will be typing in the chat box. Special thanks to training committee for bringing this on table and arranging one more successful program to benefit community, especially members of ASSP Kuwait chapters. Just one announcement for all our members, all participants. Those who wish to receive a certificate for participation shall pay a very nominal charge of 5 KD as an administration charges. This will be your contribution to the chapter. And you have already received mail regarding the transfer process from our chapter office. If you have any queries, kindly reach Mr. Riaz of our ASSP office in case of any query. Screen is yours, Mr. Safdar.
Yes, actually, Sardar is having some connectivity issue. I would like to thank Riyaz Saab, really salute to you. And Alhamdulillah, the presentation was very excellent. And I used to say that you are a very good tutor, speaker, trainer, mentor, and really salute to you, sir. And really, I can feel that now 2 a.m. almost 2:30 like that. But still, many people they had you manage well, means almost 100 people they had participated, and till end only 5 or 7 only moved. So thank you very much, sir. And to all the chapters who are the members who are still there, I request again that to connect the members, we had circulate the WhatsApp number. Just use that WhatsApp number, save in your mobile number. So whatever the message we want to show, send the members, to connect the members, we had given this WhatsApp number. And to obtain the certificate, as our Vice President and Secretary already informed, please let us know. Inshallah, we will try and we will commit from our side that during this tenure, inshallah, we will give more and more useful training, which we will implement in your field as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Riyaz Saab. Thank you, Mazhar. Thank you, Safdar. Thank you, all the participants. And once again, thank you all my team members. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Before we close in, just sorry to pitch in. If any of the members, participants would like to get some clarifications, feel free. Let the clarification be as simple, as stupid, whatever. Don't feel shy on that. Any question is not a bad question. Every question is a good question. So please, if you have any clarification questions, write to ASSP, they will transfer it to me, and inshallah, I will reach back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sardar, you have to say anything, or we will just call off meeting, because now almost 2.5 hours.
Yes, this is time to call off meeting. And on a personal note, thank you all for attending.
Okay, thank you, Riyaz Saab. Thank you all. We are closing now.
Feedback form, please complete everybody feedback form.
Yes, feedback form. Yes.
Before you sign off.
To send the feedback form, this will help us to improve a lot.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Ramana.
Yeah.
Ramana,
Very
just
nice.
unmute all. So if someone wants to give some suggestions, we can take now itself.
Okay. Riyaz.
It has gone already.
It's easy for Riyaz.
Yes, doing.
Yeah. Okay, because I saw Habibur Rahman was raising his hand.
Okay, no problem. Unmute all. Let these people. They will.
Yes, everyone can speak. I already done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we unmute everyone, it will be problem. Those who want to talk, they can unmute and they can talk.
Okay,
Otherwise,
that is also excellent.
unmute. Yeah. Yes.
Let
yes.
listen from our members.
If anyone wants to talk, please go ahead.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. This is Shahidul Arfin Sayyed. Thank you very much for this course, and really looking forward to attend another this kind of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saeed.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
This is a wonderful course we conducted. I appreciate the team. I expect such a courses, give us some leveling courses. It will be useful to internationally. So my suggestion, hope everybody will understand that. Like a level 1 risk assessment, level 2, level 3, whatever it. I hope everybody understand this. Thank you very much. It's my suggestion.
Thank you, Ramu. Thank you very much. We will consider, inshallah. Anyone else? You can mute yourself and you can talk. Okay, Ramanna, see you all. Thank you. We are closing now. Inshallah, we will be meeting, inshallah, very soon. On 15th, we are going to send an email regarding process safety management meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Feedback form. Okay.
Thank you for the good talk. Thank you.
When that exam?
Where is the feedback form?
Yeah, I already shared on chat. Can you please check, please?
Chat. Open the chat, and we probably will be sending through email also. Okay, you can fill it and send. That is very much important for us to improve ourselves. Okay, and the announcement for upcoming events will be done by tomorrow. We have an event on 15th related to PSM. It will be a technical meet, and we have exams as discussed earlier. We have exam for PSM, awareness on PSM tomorrow, and PSM 60 and 12. Okay, the dates are already announced. If you have any questions and queries, you can send you an email or chat. That's it. Thank you. Thank you, Jayaji. You can close. Yes. Shall we close
Yes,
now?
yes, yes, sir. Okay, may I close? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Good night.
Bye. Good night.